back off a little, but I would talk to them.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know how to set boundaries sooner. That's not fair to either of us.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Heal, Laugh, and Rise Up. I'm Jessie, your badass two-time cancer fighter, soul work mentor, and your favorite Latina.
Hi, and I'm Amber, a chemo nurse by day, caretaker to my husband by night, all while being a scrunchy mom.
We're here to talk all about our traumas and how we use them to grow, honey.
So grab your drink and let's get into today's miracle and shit show.
You ready for a little boundaries, honey?
Is that today's topic?
That's today's topic. Boundaries almost reminds me of getting a spanking.
Is that a bad thing? In a bad way?
In a bad way, not in a other kind of spanking kind of way, girl.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
This past year, I've learned that boundaries are important. I don't know how to set boundaries.
This past year, so never before a year ago, did you have this idea?
I guess
concept,
I guess
teaching?
Yes, but in a different kind of boundaries that are that I need to set for me to continue on my healthy journey mentally. And what I mean by that is maybe one, staying away from people that are not benefiting my life and are sucking me dry. Sorry if that sounds weird, but taking my energy, making me stress. I never set a boundary with limiting my time with these people.
You should.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's an example. When you said you never set boundaries, I'm talking about those kind of boundaries.
But I mean, like, you were never taught. You don't think you're ever taught boundaries? Never got brought up in a relationship before?
No, I don't think so.
Me either. Don't worry.
I don't think so, because I don't think even the word boundaries was used.
What is it in Spanish? ¿Cómo se dice boundaries?
¿Cómo se dice boundaries in Spanish? I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's never been brought up.
Because it was just, if your mom tells you to do something, is that a boundary?
A command. No, yeah. It's a rule.
A rule. My dad was more like a command. I don't think it was boundaries. So I'm learning the definition of boundaries and what it really means to set a boundary.
Is there someone in particular right now that made you have this topic in your head that you know you need to start setting boundaries with?
Like a particular person? I mean, I feel like
me.
There's boundaries even with my husband. And that boundaries are needed, and boundaries can be implemented in a very loving, respectful way. I think maybe I would think before that boundaries were like bad. And I don't know why I associated boundaries with being bad.
You said it was like a spanking. Now you're saying it's like bad. So like it made you feel like you're doing something wrong if you set a boundary?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So I wouldn't know how to set a boundary. And it's still very difficult to set boundaries.
It is.
I'm learning how to set boundaries.
What have you found that works?
Being honest and saying that I need to set this boundary because my mental health is very important to me. And what about setting boundaries without telling the person?
Is that fair?
Yeah, is it? And
depends on what it is, I think.
Like if it's a person that maybe is not like bringing any type of, and I'm not saying that I only associate with people that bring quality to my life and contribute something. So I'm pretty much, then that also makes me feel like I'm using you.
Well, no, but that is how relationships work.
But if you're one of my friends or an acquaintance, and when I hang out with you, I'm just stressed because you are a taker. You're a taker. You're either taking
soul sucker,
vampire energy. So why am I hanging out with you? I love you, but why am I hanging out with you? Because every time you leave, I feel so defeated. I'm upset at myself. I'm stressed out.
Why do you love these people? Were they not like that before? Because of the lack of boundaries? And then they started to take advantage?
I think so.
So like it didn't start that way.
I don't know. Did not start that way.
It's interesting. Yeah, that's why boundaries are so important.
And because I'm such a giving person and I'm so nice, I could be very nice and very caring. That's just my nature. Because sometimes Alex tells me all the time, "You're too nice. You're too nice." Setting boundaries sometimes. How could you set boundaries with somebody who does not even understand the concept of boundaries and does not even know, and they're just gonna think you're being rude and you're being mean? And so, do you just stop? Do you just distance yourself a little bit and not really tell them why? Because there's some people that
Depends who they are. If they mean something to me, no, I wouldn't just ghost them. If they don't mean something to me, absolutely ghost them, move on.
Yeah.
I don't want them in my life anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And then that person in between, that person that I really, really love and has changed and walks all over me now because I never set boundaries. No, I don't think I would slowly distance. Maybe I would do both.
Mm-hmm.
Back off a little,
Mm-hmm.
but I would talk to them.
Yeah.
And say, hey,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know how to set boundaries sooner.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair to either of us.
Mm-hmm.
But so that we can continue to have a good relationship, I need to start setting boundaries. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Either way, you were miserable before, right?
Yeah. I'm having a hard time, not having a hard time, but I'm having this, because it's almost like I can see through different glasses now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Setting boundaries with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
with the kids, okay?
Okay.
Because here's an example. We'll go out, we went out somewhere recently, and it was me, my mom, and the kids, okay? And it's so funny how we are a product of how we were raised, because try to stop when I catch myself. So here's an example. The kids get off the car, they're in the school, we're going to production, we're going to baile, a dance, girls are dancing, and the boys get out and they're just kind of running around. They're in the school, there's no street, there's nothing. My mom's like, hey, stop running around. I'm like, Mom, it's okay. So it's almost like I want to set these boundaries with my mom, but she's 75 years old. Like, am I really gonna? And it bothers me so much because it's a part of me that I don't want to be anymore. Because I've noticed that that's me. Hey, watch it, you're gonna fall. Well, yeah, you're gonna fall because I'm saying you're gonna fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm manifesting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in my journey of learning all these new things, I've noticed that my mom speaks so negative, and when I tell people, they're like, your mom is the nicest person. I never said my mom was nice. My mom is the sweetest woman on earth, but it's her conditioning has now trickled down to me and now to the kids. So I have a hard time with trying to tell my mom, because then I'm sure my mom might think like I'm telling her what to do, or like I'm being mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't tell her in a rude way, but I'll just be like, Mom, like, it's okay. Like, so now we're both high, like,
yeah.
what do you call it?
Defensive.
Yes, a little anxious, because
Yeah.
now she's like, oh, I want to tell the kids not to run around because they're gonna fall. And I'm like,
But then I don't want to hear this from Jesse.
yes. So it's like, how do I just stop hanging out with them as a group, because then it's stressful and I'm trying to set boundaries. They're also not my children, but they're also in my care because the mother's not around, and I had them in my care.
But when so this is your family,
right?
That you don't plan on cutting out of your life.
Absolutely.
So I don't think avoiding the situation will make it better. I don't think it will make it neutral. I think it will make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Avoiding an issue
absolutely.
that isn't actually going away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If it's like, I'm not going to even tell this person what they did wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just cutting them out of my life.
Yeah, or I'm just not coming around as much, and now you're like, well, how come she's not coming around to all this stuff?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, she seems happier.
So, yeah. She's smiling.
She smiles all the time now. She's so nice. Yeah, you're no longer in their life. If I think if it's something that is still going to be in your life,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you can't avoid it, because it will make it worse.
Yeah.
But what do you do then?
Yeah.
Very uncomfortably make those corrections.
And I've never had the conversation with my mom privately, like when we're having girl time.
Oh, I think that would be the best.
That's the best time to do it. Just like my sister said on one of the episodes, on our first episode, but one of the first ones, when we talked about when you said, I'm a mom, don't correct me in the moment.
Yeah, I'm already
anxious,
I'm freaking out, I'm
right,
overstimulated.
right. So maybe having a conversation with her privately, like, Mom, like, they're kids and you're older, like, don't let it, because it stresses her out.
Yeah, and you're like, it's stressing you out, and seeing you stressed is stressing me out.
Mhm.
I don't like when you do this. You know, it's funny because as a mom trying to raise my child different and treat my husband different than the rest of the world is doing, or at least the majority of what I see around me is doing, it is really hard because, like, to tell my parents not to give her the fucking Doritos.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've ever told my parents don't give her Doritos.
Okay.
Because I just wrote that one off at that I was just going to have to live with it. But that's because I had corrected them on so many other things.
Mm.
And it was just, you pick your battles. But I do know, like, for certain things, I feel like I would very respectfully say, like, I don't want this for Mackenzie.
Okay.
Please don't do this, or please try this instead. And the response was usually, even if she doesn't know she was doing it, my mom, very defensive.
Mhm.
Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
But over time, I feel like she started to agree with what I would do because now she knows why I'm doing
Right.
it. And she also, over time, and not just my mom, sister-in-law,
Mhm.
good friends with their children, over time people saw there's a reason I'm choosing to do this, and I think it's right, and I'm saying so in a respectful way, not in a, oh, you're so dumb you don't know that you shouldn't give your kid red 40. I'm not saying that.
Mhm.
I'm saying, like, hey, did you know how bad it is?
Mhm.
Did you know that the McDonald's french fries that we ate are made so much differently now?
Mhm.
Yeah, we ate it, no big deal. They're not eating what we ate. I don't think you should feed my kid McDonald's french fries.
Mhm.
And it's like, I think the first 20 times you have that conversation, it's extremely uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Feelings are hurt. You get defensive. They get defensive. You hate each other for those minutes.
And it feels so weird. You just want to disappear.
And weeks can go by and it could just get worse because now we're avoiding each other and it
Mhm.
makes things worse. And then eventually you can get to some type of middle ground and understand where each other are coming from
Mhm.
because they are your loved one. I think as long as you keep having very clear and honest conversations, you'll get there. Like, now I could tell my mom, oh no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And I could say it that way. I no longer have to sit and go, how am I gonna word this so I don't
Yes.
offend her?
Yes.
We're to the point where I'd be like, Mom, I don't think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Oh no, we're not gonna do that. And I don't feel awkward later because I don't think I've hurt her feelings. But
Mm.
before, it was like, oh my God, I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. Or I didn't mean to, insult her.
Yeah.
Now we don't have that because we've been spending 3 years doing this.
Right.
I think over time it gets better as long as you don't avoid it
Mhm.
and are really clear about your boundaries.
Yeah, and like you said, being very clear and explaining the reason why it's important to you.
And of course, like earlier in the relationship, the better. But my mom, your mom,
Mhm.
we are 40 years in, 32 years in. Like, we should have started a long time ago and we didn't.
Yeah.
So then what do? You just do it.
Do you think ever since you became a mother, because I'm trying to reflect back, why or when did I feel like it's so important? For me, it was like obviously the life altering situation that I went through that made me really realize that boundaries are important and they are good to have.
Mine was the same. It wasn't being a mom.
It
It was
wasn't
Mike.
Mike. Okay.
It was a life altering event,
Yeah.
which being a mom
Right.
could be.
Yeah.
It just so happens that I had a bigger life
Yes,
altering
before
event
you
right
became a
before I
mom.
became a
Yeah.
mom. But I think if it wasn't for Mike's accident, this still would have happened. It just would have happened at
Right.
pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had someone tell me that they have such a hard time. So childcare is expensive.
Mhm.
They don't want to send their kid to daycare.
Mhm.
They wish they could homeschool, but they both have to work. And mom and dad are willing and available. but mom and dad don't do things the way they want them to do.
Yeah.
And it's very cultural.
And it's very difficult. I know somebody who takes care of their grandkids and the parents are parenting a different way, very different way. And it's like the conversation is like the scrunchy, gentle parenting, like, your feelings. And then, the person taking care of the kids is like, oh, it's shake them up. It's just so interesting to see from the mother to the daughter a big change in parenting. And I feel like the generations before that maybe has been changing maybe a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure, because I look at my grandmother and I look at my mother, and my mother she has a lot of the similar qualities. Genetically, you will.
Yeah.
But she is the opposite of her mother. Of course, they have similar qualities. But their value in life, a lot of them are very opposite. So it's like clearly she has made changes.
Yeah.
And she had broken a lot of generational trauma. Thank God. I'm glad. I'm so proud my mom did that. And now if I'm going to do it, because times are changing too.
Yeah, you can't keep.
Maybe we didn't have to break that type of trauma because it wasn't a problem. But we don't get to do that anymore. So we have to keep changing. It's crazy. And sometimes I don't see that though. Have you seen someone who their parents don't set boundaries, so they don't set boundaries?
Oh, yeah.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
You gotta start. Who's going
to start it, right?
That 13-year-old kid is supposed to be the one that starts setting boundaries and then gets pushed away from their family and is gonna go join a gang now because they don't feel like they belong here. Maybe not a gang, but they're gonna go find somewhere that they think they belong.
Do you think that this era has the most maybe because now I'm more open to seeing it, maybe I wasn't aware of it, like the new way of, I don't want to say the new way of parenting, I don't know how I'm explaining it, but maybe because now I'm aware of it, I see it all around.
I think that's what it is, because a lot of people were like, oh, what is this new crunchy, scrunchy, silky parenting? And it's like, no, it was crunchy parenting was granola parenting in the 70s.
Okay.
We just put a new term to it.
Yeah.
It's the same shit.
Yeah.
People have been doing it forever.
Yeah.
I think things are getting worse around us. Our food is being made different. So we're trying to combat that, right? So we are changing and adding new policies and procedures to our lives. But when, I don't know, probably, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember when brown and red M&Ms were not allowed? There might be people who are older than you. There was a time when dyes were known for being bad, and literally M&M took brown and red M&Ms out of the bags. But then it just came right back.
Yeah.
Probably with something else. I don't know. I've never looked into it. But people start boycotting, not because the same crap has been happening, but because something changed that's wrong. So I didn't have to tell people don't eat fast food French fries because they were cooked in tallow before. Now they're cooked in canola oil. You probably don't want to eat that.
Do you think it's also and thinking about the gentle parenting in other ways, also because the world is so corrupt and everything is just so fucked that?
Yeah, I think everything around's getting worse,
yes,
right?
So that, yes, not just the food, but the environment of everything else. So now you have to change your parenting because there's bullying in school, right? Or whatever. And now your mom's not going to tell you, like maybe back in the days, ay, gordita, cuidado, mucha tortilla, you're eating
like they
too
would
much.
Still say that.
But I'm saying the next generation is not going to say it. Like our generation.
No, like I am going to tell my daughter if she's getting fat that she's eating too much.
Oh, okay, you are. Okay.
No, but I get what you're saying.
But not in that way. Like I feel like our parents were a little rude.
Yeah, they could have been a little more ruthless.
They just would have to say, they would tell me, you know what they'd tell me, because I was very skinny. It was almost, my mom's like, oh, you're like you look anorexic, you need to eat. And I was like, I can only eat so much.
Yeah.
And so growing up, it was my biggest thing because then I was being made fun of at school because I was
Yeah.
skinny.
But that's what I want to point out is like, you were being bullied at school. It's not new.
Yeah.
I think the reason, some of why it's changing is you were bullied at school and you don't want to be a bully. And that's why
that's why
changing,
I'm going
right?
to parent and not going to tell my daughter, oh, you're so white or you're so dark. Because my mom would say that in a cute way, but it's like, it gives the kids a complex.
Yeah.
Like, Lila and Mia, they're darker. And so my mom would say, like, in a nice way, like, oh, you're morenita or whatever. But it's like, as they grow, then now they look at the skin color with their cousins and it's different. The boys are very fair.
Yeah.
And so, like, seeing maybe the mothers of the kids not magnify certain things.
I feel like they're just not gonna, and I could be wrong, I don't know, I've never looked into it. You're only gonna change what affected you.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm gonna emphasize to Mackenzie that she comes from all these backgrounds. You are Mexican, you are Scottish, you are German, you are Swiss. And I'm gonna try and teach her all the different foods and almost teach her pride in those things because I didn't have that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'm also going to somehow give her some complex on the opposite that I'm not focused on, right? So I don't know. I feel like we're battling the things that hurt us and we're just going to cause, more.
Yeah.
And then she's going to have to adjust and it's going to happen to the next generation. But I do see there's a lot of research out there saying like this generation, because of the things we've lived through, from 9/11 to COVID.
Okay.
This generation lived through so many worldwide and nationwide negative events that's the reason we react the way we do, compared to a generation that didn't live through that many intense events. And maybe that's why our generation feels so close to someone who went to World War II. Because we can trust them, because in our heads, they went through something like we have. So we trust them, but anyone in between we don't trust.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand us. Now, the next generation, they're known as the therapy generation. And depending on who you talk to, they're known as the sissy generation.
Right, yeah.
Because we have coddled them too much. So it's like, what's correct?
Yeah.
Now my kid can't take a joke. I ruined her.
Yeah.
I can't openly tell her, hey, you're getting fat, you need to stop eating the tortillas. I should be able to. If someone's not being healthy, you should be able to tell them. But how do we say it now that we've raised them not to know how to take that?
Yeah, we don't want to hurt their feelings.
Her feelings.
And then they might tell the counselor or whoever.
Well, she might have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Because that's also what is very, for a lack of better words, praised right now with her generation and the generation under us. Like, there's a lot that we're trying to fix. And I think sometimes we do too much one way. And it kind of just goes back to, I don't know if I've said it in every single fucking episode, but it just goes back to balance. We're just trying to balance.
You need to find the balance, but it's hard to find the balance.
It's so hard. So I try to, I've learned a lot from Mike and his accident. He's a very logical thinker. So sometimes I stop and I go, how do I think of this logically and not emotionally? And logically, I can choose what I'm eating based on ingredients, making rules, setting boundaries. Don't eat this, eat that, and never changing. But when it comes to emotions, it's kind of hard to draw that line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So
it's almost impossible, kind of. It feels impossible, but maybe because we're not practicing it and we're not implementing it, that's why it's impossible.
Yeah.
The more you do it, it becomes easier.
Yeah. There's also something I wanted to mention before we end this episode. I learned, and I'm still learning, setting boundaries easier said than done. I set certain boundaries, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to communicate a certain way, so I have my boundaries set, which is uncomfortable to do, but
Right.
eventually I thought I nailed it. And then I was like, how come people aren't changing and listening to me? And it was brought to my attention that I changed and I'm expecting people to change. And that's not what we can do. That doesn't, you can't expect anyone else to do anything.
No.
All you can do is set your boundaries the way you want them to be and live with it and adjust them if needed. And if people react the way you want them to, great. But if they don't, that doesn't mean they're bad people.
Yeah.
You changed. You set boundaries. If that person crosses them over and over and over again, they need to set boundaries. Not you. You already did.
Right.
So now maybe it is a matter of, hey, I need to step away. I tried, and this person isn't who I thought they were. Because I think the thought process was, oh, they're treating me this way because I allowed it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to allow it, and it's going to stop. Well, then you stopped allowing it, and it didn't stop. You realized, oh, no, they're treating me that way because they're dicks.
Yeah.
Never mind, I just don't want them in my life.
Yeah. Or because, and they're that way with everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's a them problem. They are just so oblivious to what kind of person they really are. And setting boundaries. You ever set a boundary in your mind? Like, this is how I'm going to say it. This is what I'm going to do. And then you go, you're like,
nope.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah. I just couldn't. Today they had a real issue that I really had to help them with. I told myself I was going to say no, but I felt really bad for them. Today was different. Next time I will.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Every time you're going to say that.
Yeah. You're setting the boundaries for yourself, not for other people. So if they don't accept the boundary, you when you don't set boundaries, you just start drowning. At some point, I just felt like I'm drowning, and I just need to set these rules for my life so I can thrive and continue to try to live this life that God has gifted me again.
And I think something that you might start to find is you start setting all these boundaries, and you realize these people aren't who you thought they were, which means you need to start growing your circle, which kind of just takes us back to, did you put yourself in a support group?
Yeah, find your community.
Find another community, start growing, and knowing that these are new relationships. Start setting your boundaries
in the beginning,
clearly and right now.
That's why people say they want to move out of California or wherever, because they can start over.
Yeah. But what good is it going to do if you don't set boundaries and make the changes right when you get there?
Yeah.
So definitely, if you are going to be making new friends, setting them earlier.
Yeah. And maybe finding a small little boundary this week that you can set with somebody in your life. One of the boundaries that I'm trying to implement in my household, it's very difficult, is the no phone boundary. Because we get home, we're working all day, and then we have a small window of quality time because Alex goes to sleep super early. And if we're both laying on the bed on our phones doing their own thing, where is the quality of time? And so having that conversation was a little difficult, and it's still difficult because I want him to look at his sports and whatever, but it's important to me to continue to bond, because that's how couples start drifting away.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the little boundaries, and my husband listens. So baby, I'm gonna set this little boundary up again, because it's easy to set it and it's easy to follow, but you have to stay consistent with it. And then I have to stay consistent. I can't set a boundary and then be on my phone. I have to set the example. So maybe this week you can pick a small little boundary that's not gonna hurt. Start setting your boundaries, honey.
Yeah. Good luck.
And good luck,
because it ain't easy.
And come back and tell us how it went.
Yes. Okay.
Why don't you guys like, follow, share with your comadre, your tío, your cousin, your friend. Just hit that subscribe button.
See y'all next week.
See you next week.